What's up, Team Tackle? This is Coach Matt. Let's get into it right now for your morning action. First and foremost, markets are reacting to a softer PPI report here today. That's falling on the backs of a softer CPI report today. And if you're looking for that bump down in inflation, you got it this week as both reports came in underneath the expectation. However, we're not seeing the central bank expectation of interest rates really change that aggressively, despite positive data on the inflationary side of the equation. We're going to get into the PPI report a little bit more here in just a second. We're also seeing some oil volatility here today and yesterday, quite frankly, as geopolitical risk out of Israel and Iran start to increase. We'll break that chart down here in a second. Oracle comes out just with a really good earnings report in the AI space. And ever since Taiwan Semiconductor reported earnings a couple months ago, quite frankly, it's just been positive story after positive story on the AI side of the equation. Oracle certainly comes through here today. A very sad story out of Boeing here today as Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner carrying 242 human souls out there crashed on takeoff en route to London. Very, very sad story. Hearts go out to everybody impacted. Thoughts and prayers. Very sad day for Boeing. Not really in the mood to break down Boeing's chart, so we'll probably stay away from that one for today. And then Jensen came out with just a comment that I thought was spot on, talking about how AVs, autonomous vehicles, robotics define the next decade, that we're in that next decade. And I absolutely agree. We're going to take a look at NVIDIA. And at the end of the video here today in Morning Action, we're going to break down Coach Frank's top trade idea on Marathon Petroleum. Energy starting to look a little bit better as crude oil is starting to show a little bit momentum. We'll get into that here in just 1 second. Now, before I move on into the market here today, very quickly, we got the Tackle 25 covered call webinar coming up on Monday, June 16th. You're not going to want to miss this one as you learn how to cash flow, compound with covered calls. It is the #1 system for retirement accounts in my estimation. Being able to cash flow, monetize on those longer term assets, very important, but it's not just about cash flowing and compounding. In times of neutrality, in times where the market's going down, 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 the covered call is a wonderful strategy to learn how to offset some of that risk as well. We're going to get into that in detail, obviously, on Monday during the Tackle 25 webinar. So I hope to see you there. It's free. Hit the link in the description below. Let's talk about the market here today. One thing that, if you were going to tell me, Matt, you're going to get a CPI report that comes in at 0.1% here today or this week. So you're going to get that. You're also going to get a PPI report that comes in at 0.1 this week. What would the market respond to that type of data? And I would say, if you were going to tell me ahead of time that we broke out a 6K last week, just by a hair, but then we were going to get a U.S.-China trade deal, a CPI report that came in at 0.1, a PPI report that came in at 0.1, I would tell you that the market would be showing a little bit of momentum this week. And that's exactly where we're at. That's exactly what we got. We got a U.S.-China headline yesterday. We got a positive CPI report. We got a positive PPI report. But what we're not seeing is the giddy up and go price action that you would expect to see a little bit in that environment. And what I mean by that is you're kind of in a little bit of open air when you're talking about the market. And when the market broke out late last Friday, kind of on that, just by a hair, right? Just by like 11 cents. It wasn't very much. But when you saw that, you saw the market with the ability to continue to go above that day's high and to potentially see momentum. Well, we went above the day's high on Monday. We didn't see momentum. We went above the day's high on Tuesday. We really didn't see momentum. We went above the day's high on Wednesday. We really didn't see momentum. We didn't go above the day's high today because of what happened yesterday with the CPI report. So the ultimate question here is, what's hesitating? Why is the market hesitating here? It's got a clean technical edge. It's got positive data from an inflationary side of the equation. Most likely, the Chinese-U.S. trade deal headline yesterday was not exactly what the market was looking for. The market was looking for probably a little bit further reduction on the complete tariff side of the equation. There's a 6-month out clause on the minerals part of that agreement. And we all know there's other things to negotiate on the U.S.-China trade side of the equation, regardless of what Howard Lutnick says. Howard Lutnick comes out there and says the deal's finished, everybody's happy, and we're reading the parameters of the deal. Oh, wait, they didn't even release the parameters of the deal. And so we're seeing these headlines at 55% tariff, when just a few days ago it was 35%. Now that includes a little bit of additional other things out there as well. But my point is, and again, I'm not making a political point, not in any capacity am I making that. I'm making a behavioral point. When the market expects one thing and it gets another thing, it's like any earnings report or any economic report. It gets for example, on Oracle today, Oracle had an expectation. They beat that expectation. What occurred? Market gapped up, ran away from it. Market activity is always based on expectations. And so when you're coming into the market this week and you're looking at that condition saying, okay, we broke out of that 6K level. We got the positive data. What's hesitating here? And it most likely was that headline. I just wanted to bring up a little bit of causation. Now, on the technical side of the equation, I also see this as the market playing defense because you're above the breakout channel at 6K. And as you can see, it's been very choppy on the intraday side of the equation this week. It has not been a clean environment, hasn't been a great day trading environment, in my opinion. It's been choppy, volatile around some key economic reports, but you're now starting to see it get cleaned up a little bit here today. Had that power move coming off the PPI report, exactly what you would expect the market to do. We saw that same thing with the CPI report yesterday. However, it didn't stick and it came right back down. And so what's going to be interesting here today is if we do see the market stick without coming back down into that chop. Keep an eye on this 60-50 level from an intraday perspective. That's kind of the anchor we're looking at from an intraday side of the equation. But once again, choppy on the intraday, no doubt about that. You come back out to the daily. How do you see it? You see it as the market playing defense. That's how you see it. The market is playing defense on top of the breakout channel, not willing to give up the breakout channel. And until that happens, you got to be thinking about this market on the bullish side of the equation, in my estimation. I just want to take a look at the NASDAQ very quickly as we're seeing a little bit of the same thing, more fading up type price action, holding firm against the 9 EMA. Keep an eye on 22,000 here. Significant whole number, kind of peeked its head above that level yesterday on the CPI report. That's kind of that level you're trying to dial in at 22K. And if you can dial that in, kind of opens up about 500 points. So complaining here a little bit about why the bulls don't have momentum, or maybe just giving a little bit of causation for why the bulls don't have momentum, doesn't mean they can't get it. Keep an eye on those levels that we talked about in the marketplace. Now, let's talk a little bit about oil here today and the commodity landscape in general, but I want to talk about oil because yesterday we saw a power candle on oil yesterday, breaking through that 200-day moving average, kissing off the 9 EMA. And before we get into the news, remember, this is a conversation that we've been having for weeks at Taco Trading. And so, yes, for people that are catching it here today saying, oh, oil's moving, come to Tackle Trading, be a pro member, hang out with us in the Traders Lounge, and start getting this analysis in front of the breakout, in front of the momentum, because we were talking about this back here when you had that increase in support to 60 against the backdrop of the reversal. And then we got that breakout last week before we saw that momentum coming into the market. Now we do have momentum, but the momentum is coming from that geopolitical news story that came out yesterday regarding Israel preparing to strike Iran. And we saw the president come out and release some information regarding, service individuals in the Middle East. And so there was a lot of concern regarding what was going to happen last night. In fact, there was a lot of headlines on X last night regarding imminent strikes in Iran. And that's why you saw that type of volatility. The ultimate question is this trend going to stick? And based on the momentum, you got to like its chances. Now you're above that 200, you're above the 9 EMA, you got momentum in trend. The only thing I would suggest here is right here at 70. That's kind of a massively important resistance zone. And so crude oil is doing some decent things on the technical momentum side. I would say 70 has some pretty decent resistance to it. But as long as crude oil kind of continues to do what it's doing, not even above 70, but just kind of playing defense like we're seeing it with the marketplace, energy stocks are going to be a part of that conversation, which are going through a pretty decent reversal. We'll take a look at Marathon Pete, which is that top trade idea out of Coach Frank. The last story I want to talk about here today, specifically from a charting perspective, is Oracle, as they came out with a good beat on EPS, good beat on the revenue side of the equation, increased forward-looking guidance on the revenue for fiscal year 26 as well. We call that the hat trick of tackle trading. When you beat EPS, beat revenue, increase forward-looking guidance, that is the hat trick. A great report coming out of Oracle here today, and the bulls are celebrating as they gapped up and ran away from it. Now, obviously, this goes without saying. You never want to chase a candle on earnings. You typically want to let that candle, that momentum kind of subside. And when you do have a momentum condition, you're going to want to attach momentum patterns, whether that's an inside flag, meaning inside the candle on the earnings gap, or whether that's a high base that just kind of dials in that very significant whole number at 200. Either way about it, it's going to be looking fairly decent in my opinion. And the AI space has had some very good data over the course of the last couple months. That certainly continues here today as well. And that's all we got for morning action. But like I said, in morning action, one thing don't sleep on is Coach Frank's top trade ideas. Coach Frank runs the Delta Dogs of tackle trading. Coach Frank puts together the watch list for all the pick list in the traders report of tackle trading. Coach Frank puts the prep to all those pick lists in the traders report. So if you're looking for a great watch list that you could utilize with the best stocks in the best setups from a technical perspective, Coach Frank puts all that together for the traders report, obviously with the help of all the coaches of tackle trading. But with that said, his top trade idea of today is MPC. MPC is something we've talked about at Tackle for a couple days now here, as it's got a real good consolidation on the daily chart with a real good resistance level right around the 165 level. Close above that 165, that would confirm not just on the daily chart breaking out of consolidation, that would also confirm a beautiful high base that is developing on the weekly chart as well, which opens up to around that 180. That's a good pick coming out of Coach Frank's for the top pick idea for the morning action. With that said, I hope everybody has a truly wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. If you need anything from us at Tackle Trading, hit us up at team@Tackle Trading. You can go hit us up in our Discord channel as well. And with that said, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in Tackle Trading.